Welcome and bienvenidos to Cultural Capacity, a podcast sponsored by Educator Aid Incorporated, where our team is committed to supporting individuals and organizations on their journey of self-aware leadership, emotional wellness, and development of effective cross-cultural communications. Let's get ready to explore the following topics together by biting into them with little pieces that go really deep to examine ourselves. Topics like bias, culture, cultural psychology, cultural neuroscience, diversity, equity, inclusion, and racial equity. Our episodes are all 10 minutes or less and intended to serve as introspective tools for you as the individual leader or the teams that you're leading. Be sure to check out the links in the podcast description where you can sign up for our free quarterly subscription, Better Community, as well as tap in and submit your questions via the voice message button. Let's get ready to learn together. Welcome. I would be remiss if I did not record this intro from where I am located. You will hear lots of breeze in the background because I am looking out at the Atlantic Ocean from Luquillo Beach, Puerto Rico, and I've been able to spend some time here. I will record an episode about my time here and connecting with some of the roots of my own heritage here on this hallowed ground in Puerto Rico. But for now, I would like to introduce this episode's guest and remind you all continue to please share and give us a review, subscribe. We are really grateful for this support and also for continuing to be in the ratings in the top 25 and 50 categories of education and personal development in Apple Podcasts for Mexico. So thank you so much. But what can I say? If you haven't listened to the previous episode, I would say go back to that first because my sister, who is the hostess of this particular episode as well, we welcome her back because she has a lot of expertise over the years in not only leading and facilitating professional development for adult learners, but engaging in that herself, as many of us do. So I invite you to listen to her wisdom and her perspective in this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. Please be certain that you hit subscribe to Better Community below. We have some really incredible companion resources that will actually accompany our podcasts. So you kind of have some plug and play professional development devoted to these topical areas in our podcast description for work with yourself and or your teams. So please be sure that you go subscribe to Better Community as we are preparing to launch our first resource kit. They are quarterly of 2022. Again, thank you for showing up for yourself and thank you for showing up for others. Be blessed.
Hi, I'm Kara Gonzalez-Howard, former bedside nurse and nursing professional development coordinator. Currently, I serve as the creative director for Educator Aid. This morning, I want to speak with you about adult learning theory. Now, we're not going to get into too many of the actual theories. There are a lot of them out there. Structurally, there are about 5 to 6 components in adult learning theory. If you want to look up some of that on your own, it's very simple to Google search and find several graphics that will help you have a better understanding of adult learning theory. Many of you in this specific audience listening to Cultural Capacity Podcast might have a lot of knowledge and background in education for childhood and young adult development. Many in our audience are teachers, principals, superintendents, former teachers, so you have a good basic understanding of childhood education and the theories where that goes. Is a totally different direction than adult learning theory. Adults are a much harder nut to crack in a lot of situations. If you do any kind of professional development in your organization, you will notice that it's much more difficult to apply the adult mind at a certain stage because many of us become ingrained and set in our ways. This isn't necessarily a negative, but it can be difficult to do professional development within an organization if you have a large number of people who are entrenched in the idea of keeping things the way they are because they are too afraid to step outside of their comfort zone. This comes from many different things. In our psychology, we often become really ingrained in the way that we think and believe, and our structure as an adult way of looking at life in general is based on a belief system that we have and we hold dear. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that adults can't learn new concepts and theories. We're constantly learning, constantly evolving, but it becomes difficult when it's not self-driven and more imposed by the higher ups, so to speak, within an organization. I practiced as a nursing professional development coordinator in a large healthcare system for about 5 years after being a bedside nurse for many years. It's interesting to observe when you get a large group of professionals in a room, the different dynamics that shift, especially when you're talking about things that are sometimes hard topics like culture, diversity, equity, inclusion, things that we tend to form a basis for our belief in our lives from things such as religion, our education, background, history, family, personal culture, race, ethnicity, that sort of thing. We all have a cultural context from which we come. So when you gather a large group of adults in a room who aren't quite as pliable as a child, you have to get a little bit creative in the approaches that you take. One thing I did notice in my practice was that adults, just as well as children, love to have fun with learning, and you have to make things dynamic and interesting, which usually points to a dynamic, interactive environment. We all know we love the meetings where we can go grab a cup of coffee, grab a donut or a snack, play with some little fidget toys on the table, doodle, that kind of thing. It makes it feel like a relaxation rather than an extra added stressor to our day. For many adults, this processing with different modalities of fidget toys and doodling kind of gets us outside of our comfort zone in some ways and allows us to play, and that opens our minds to new concepts more easily. Because we can come into situations having our own beliefs and ideas pretty solidified, it's important to open the conversation with a question. And oftentimes this gets the group warmed up and able to interact. Adults love interacting and sharing their point of view for the most part. You just have to set the intention and the tone, expectations, and kind of how the boundaries are going to be for specific conversations that you choose to hold. The other two very important components to adult learning is that it has to be meaningful in daily work or daily life. Meaning, if you're having a conversation about something that doesn't have much to do with their daily workflow, they're probably not going to be invested in the conversation. The other dynamic thing that you can do within your professional development is to address an actual issue or problem or opportunity, as we like to say in the professional development world, in which the learner is the problem solver. This gives them an investment in what they're doing. It gets them as excited as a stakeholder in their organization. Do not, I repeat, do not go into a room in 2020. Do not even think about going into a room in 2022 with death by PowerPoint. This is an outdated modality. It's fine for highlighting key points, for note-taking and that sort of thing. But please, we all know how to read a PowerPoint deck. My suggestion is that if you feel like this is an effective tool for you to use, which it can be, is to send out a PowerPoint in advance with the expectation that people review it before they come and have at least 3 key points that they would like to discuss within the meeting. Adults can get frustrated very easily when you're not letting them operate at the top of their talent. And so in order to do that, you have to give them an investment into something that matters to them in their day-to-day work. The last thing that I would say, that as a facilitator, it's really important for you to remain open to the tone of the conversation in the room. It's not the most important thing for you to be able to get your point across. It's important for you to facilitate in a way that asks questions and gets your group motivated to problem solve on their own. Ultimately, this is what you want from your coworkers. You want them to be able to go out in their different areas of expertise, their different pockets within the organization, and make change and influence in the way that you're teaching them and training them in this meeting, so that from top to bottom, you have all stakeholders involved and actively excited about working for your organization. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope that you also enjoy allowing space for creativity and different voices to be heard within your organization. Professional development is not one person in the room speaking with expertise. It is a shared community experience, and that always brings amazing outcomes to your organization. Thanks so much. I hope you have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much for showing up for yourself today and tuning in to this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. We're glad you're here. If you found value in this episode, be sure to share out with your social networks. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a review on Apple. You know, all the things. Finally, don't forget to take advantage of our free quarterly subscription that is in our podcast description. The link is right there. It's called Better Community, and we would love to have you join us there too. Until next time, take care.